What's going on, everybody, and welcome into this edition of B-Schaeff Daily. Brenden Schaeffer with you, breaking down the Cardinals' loss to the Marlins in Game 3 of that series on Wednesday. It's been a couple of days since we last caught up, and the Cardinals did win the series in Miami. Really good offensive performances in Game 1 and Game 2, especially when you consider the opposing pitchers that the Cardinals were facing. Yuri Perez is one of the bright young arms in the game today, and the Cardinals were able to whittle away at him until forcing him from the game in the 5th inning. He made some mistakes. The Miami defense made some mistakes. The Cardinals made them compound and then got to the bullpen, got the job done in Game 1. Game 2, they were all over Edward Cabrera from the word go. It's another solid arm in that Miami rotation, but the Cardinals peppered him with hits the entire game, and they were able to get a bunch of runs off of him and win Game 2. Game 3 is the one we're going to focus in on a little bit more, though, today, because Game 3 was started by former Cardinal Sandy Alcantara. And I know just saying his name brings up a number of connotations in the minds of Cardinals fans. But this year, he's been one of the worst, if not the singular worst pitcher in Major League Baseball, statistically speaking, except for when he faces the St. Louis Cardinals. He's always dominated the Cardinals in years past, but 2025 is Sandy Alcantara's first year back from Tommy John surgery. He missed the 2024 season and has had a rough go of things trying to get back into the swing of it so far in 2025. And we're pretty deep in the season, so it's not a small sample size anymore. This season, and this includes the games against the Cardinals here, 6.04. That's the earned run average for Sandy Alcantara in 2025. Among qualified MLB starters, that's last. That is dead last in baseball. I think Mitchell Parker is the next worst among qualifying starters. So you have to have started a certain number of games, had a certain number of innings relative to total team games played to be considered a qualifier for statistical leaderboard. Well, in this case, we're not really looking at the leaderboard. We're looking at the bottom of it. But Sandy Alcantara's been as bad, as ineffective, as poor as anybody in baseball among starting pitchers. 6.04 is the ERA. For context, and look, whatever you think of Eric Fetty and the way that he performed with the Cardinals this season, his ERA with St. Louis was 5.22. For those who haven't been keeping up, he's kind of struggled with the Braves since getting there. No shock to anybody here. Has an ERA over 7 since joining Atlanta. But like even Eric Fetty, from an ERA standpoint, has not been as bad as Sandy Alcantara this season. Sandy leads the league, at least the National League. I'll look and see if that is applicable to all of Major League Baseball. Anytime you've got a bold on your baseball reference page, you know that you're doing something right usually, right? You can look back to 2022, the 228 and 2/3 innings pitched by Sandy Alcantara. That's bold. That's italicized. Means he was the most effective workhorse in baseball, throwing that many innings. He faced the most batters in baseball. He had the highest wins above replacement in baseball at 8.00 in that 2022 Cy Young campaign. This year, he's got a bold and an italic for another reason. Earned runs, 90 of them across 134 innings pitched, to show that, yeah, he's been the worst starter in Major League Baseball. We told you that already. But what's crazy is, take out the numbers against the Cardinals, it gets even worse. He's a 6.49 ERA against every team other than the Cardinals. You take the Cardinals out of his season-long numbers, the ERA jumps by about a half a run, and he's only faced the Cardinals twice. Yeah, it's rough. Against the Cardinals, he has 13 strikeouts in 12 innings. Against everybody else, his Ks per 9 ratio is 6.86, which is basically the career numbers of Miles Michaelis for a K per 9 ratio. Yeah, Miles has a 6.5 career strikeouts per 9. Sandy Alcantara, when facing everybody other than the St. Louis Cardinals this year, has a 6.8. It's inexplicable, and it sometimes happens, right? We know Tommy John surgery to be this thing that, look, everybody gets it nowadays. You come back from it sometimes stronger than ever. But sometimes it does take a little bit of time to return back, and that first season back from Tommy John can be a little bit of an adventure. That's seemingly what Sandy Alcantara is facing this year with the Marlins, as he is recovered physically, but still trying to find his stuff on a consistent basis. Maybe the performance against the Cardinals on Wednesday night is a sign that there are better things to come for the remainder of the 2025 season for Sandy Alcantara. Or maybe it's not going to really be until next year that he's able to lock back in, and maybe he's never the same again. after Tommy John surgery. All of these are possibilities. And since we don't really know the answer to which road it's going to be for him, why is it that he seems to still be locked in against the Cardinals? Because this year he's got a .75 ERA in 12 innings against St. Louis. His strikeout numbers are what they look like for his career norms. His stuff looks like what it looked like in 2022 when he was the Cy Young Award winner. I know that last night the home plate umpire caught a little bit of grief from Cardinals fans, maybe giving some generous calls to Sandy, maybe squeezing Andre Pallante a little bit on the other side, which was probably the case. And that's just not something that really works when you're Andre Pallante with the kind of run that he is on. He has really struggled significantly of late. But by the way, his ERA, 5.17 for the season. Almost a full run lower than Sandy Alcantara. And that includes the games against the Cardinals. It is inexplicable that Sandy Alcantara is as bad against everybody else as he is, but is as good against the Cardinals as he has always been. I think for his career, he's got like a 1 ERA or maybe even better against St. Louis. But that wasn't really a surprise when he was out there winning a Cy Young Award in previous seasons. It does kind of feel crazy this year that it happened. I labeled it this way for STLSportsCentral.com in my latest article over there. You can go check that out at their website. Sandy Alcantara's dominance of the Cardinals is both, well, it's impossible to believe because of how bad he's been overall, but it's also pretty predictable when you consider, I don't know, the Cardinals of it all. It's not like I am considerate of this Cardinals team as one of the worst in baseball. I've actually had to try to tell people, kind of talk them off the ledge. Hey, look, this Cardinals team is going to finish right around 500, more likely than not. Maybe they really do go in the tank for the rest of the season and they end up with a year similar to 2023 when they went 71 and 91. I can't rule that out. I still wouldn't predict it at this point. They did win the series against Miami. We'll see beginning tonight in Tampa what they do at George Steinbrenner Field with that Tampa Bay Rays team. But the Cardinals largely are not a terrible team. They're a frustrating team, though. And it's because of, well, instances like this, where we say, why can't the Cardinals do to Sandy Alcantara what everybody else is doing to him? Is it a product of Sandy just turning it on a little bit more, being a little bit more locked in when he's facing the St. Louis lineup? Is it a product of just coincidence, happenstance? Like, he's only faced the Cardinals twice this year. You can't necessarily, say that there's been enough of a sample size to determine that there's something different going on when he's facing the Cardinals versus somebody else, not within this season anyway. And this is really the only season I care about measuring when it comes to this conundrum for the Cardinals, because look, in other years, he was dominating everybody. It wasn't just the Cardinals that he was beating up on. This year, though, it's been a couple of outings against the Cardinals, and those both have not only been good in the box score, but they looked good too. Like the velocity, he was up, near 99 last night in terms of the fastball, the secondary stuff, the sharpness on the two-seamer. I mean, his pitches are darting left and right, up and down, and the Cardinal batters in the box just did not seem to be particularly comfortable against him last night. 7 innings, 2 runs, only one of them earned on the Wilson Contreras homer, 9 strikeouts. Yeah, he's throwing 114 pitches in that game last night. It's just like he is back to his workhorse form. It's kind of crazy they let him throw that many pitches, but it's a season high. Yeah, why not? Get him through 7. Get that Marlins team to beat the Cardinals. That's what happened last night. Cardinals really could have used that sweep, not really in the context that they have a run in them to make the playoffs. I don't believe that. You don't believe that. So we won't spend too much time talking about it, but it would have gotten them back to 500. I do think there's something to be said for having a 500 record. But that's why I continue to say, like, the Cardinals are not terrible. They aren't, the Pirates. They aren't the White Sox. They aren't the Rockies. Can't beat the Rockies, but they're not the Rockies, right? They are going to win about 80 games this year. And that's pretty much middle of the pack. But that's where the frustration comes from, in part because that's where Cardinals fans feel the organization has been more or less for a number of years now, just kind of stuck in the middle and seemingly with no way out, right? They don't necessarily, Cardinals fans I'm talking about, don't necessarily see the upward mobility of the Cardinal organization in its current form and feel like things are going to have to change before the Cardinals are going to be able to get anywhere better than where they're basically slated to be right now. The frustration is these random, and like Alcantara's not a random. We know that he's a former Cy Young Award winner, but when he's pitching the way that he's pitched against everybody else, why does he look so darn good against the Cardinals? And why is this just another one of those unexplained mysteries when it comes to this organization and this franchise in recent years? That's why I say it's impossible, because he stinks against everybody else. But it's also predictable because it just feels like a very Cardinals thing to have happen. And again, the context of that statement is not to say the Cardinals are, one of the worst teams in baseball. No, they're one of the middlingest teams in baseball year over year over the past 3 years. And it just feels as though if I were to tell you, hey, Cardinals are facing Alcantara tonight, he's got a 6 ERA, what do you think is going to happen? You would have been able to tell me, yeah, he's probably going to shove. He's going to look like a Cy Young, and you're going to look down at the stat sheet for him for the season, and you're really not going to believe what you see. I'm not a tinfoil hat guy, but I'm putting it on when it comes to Sandy Alcantara, because what in the heck is going on here, right? I would expect to see that version of him every single time, but then I look up and go, oh, the Dodgers scored 8 runs against Sandy Alcantara. Weird. Now it's the Dodgers, right? Like you expect them to be a more prolific lineup than what the Cardinals are putting out there. But I mean, the disparity it just boggles the mind that it has been so significant. And again, we can talk about this in a number of contexts. How do the Cardinals rate as an offense in MLB? You might say, well, of course, it's the Cardinals. What do you think's going to happen? They stink. No, they don't. They rank 15th in MLB in runs scored this season. In fact, they're tied for 15th. You cannot be more mid than the Cardinals offensively this year. They are mid. They are 15th and a half in runs scored. That's their ranking across MLB. They're right smack dab down the middle. There are other teams that are far worse than the Cardinals. In fact, it's half the league offensively that are going to score fewer runs than the Cardinals. There are many teams that are better than the Cardinals at the plate. In fact, it's the other half of the league that are better. The Cardinals are just in the middle. There's no shame in it, but there's not really anything exciting about it either. But that's why it is so hard to identify. Why is it certain scenarios where you just know they're going to struggle? It's going to be Sandy Alcantara in an otherwise terrible year for him. He's going to lock you down. It's going to be the soft-tossing lefty, right? That old narrative. Well, that narrative has kind of come to fruition this year. Have you seen the Cardinals against Matthew Boyd? They did get him the last time at Busch Stadium, but basically by bunting a bunch of times because he wasn't able to field his position. That really helped against Chicago Cubs and Matt Boyd on that. I think it was a Friday night game the last time the Cubbies were in town. It just seems like you kind of know what you're going to get, though, when it comes to these certain matchups. You face a Pablo Lopez, you face a Paul Skeens. Man, the Cardinals are going to put their game face on, and they're going to find a way to grind out a 4-3 win, right? They're going to come up with a key hit late, and that's going to really excite you. But then they're going to play the Colorado Rockies, and they're going to lose 2 out of 3. It's going to be inexplicable. You're not going to have any understanding for why it happened, but you do know what the record's going to be at the end of it. It's going to be 80 and 82. It's going to be 81 and 81. It's going to be 82 and 80. It's going to be something like that. 79 and 83. Take your pick. They're going to be somewhere in the middle. And it's that feeling that, man, they're oh so close because of what they're able to do against the good teams and the good moments. And then the feeling that they couldn't be further away from where you want them to be because of nights like last night, where you have a team on the ropes. You were able to demonstrate for the first time in really more than a month, really close to a month and a half or 2 months, significant offensive production and sustaining it over the course of a couple of games. Game 1, Yuri Perez, Cardinals find a way to knock on the door until they break through in the 5th inning. Edward Cabrera, they're at him the entire game until he throws his 99th pitch and he gets out of there. Couldn't finish 5. It was great. 2 games in a row. I know it's like, oh, okay, it's the Marlins. You can't really do the, oh, okay, it's the Marlins thing, though, because if that were the case, the Cardinals would have gone 5-1 against the Rockies this year. Instead, they went 2-4 against the Rockies this year. You can identify a couple of little bit of like moments in their season, and that is the explanation for why they're 2 games below 500 right now instead of 3, 4, 5, 6 games above 500 and still able to talk about wild card. You're not able to talk about it right now, not until the Cardinals go on a 6 or 7 in a row type of run to be able to vault themselves back into the conversation. And nothing we have seen from the roster is indicative of that type of run being on the way. And so you're just kind of stuck where you are, where it feels like you've always been, which of course it's not true, but recency bias is going to tell you, oh my gosh, it's just been this middling Cardinals team for so very long. 2022 was a pretty fun season, but once you lost the Albert of it all, the Yachty of it all, very quickly, the Cardinals have kind of come under this malaise. They haven't been able to find the veteran leadership to step in for what those guys were able to bring. And no, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to go out and sign more veterans. Like, they attempted that. They brought in Matt Carpenter. They brought in Brandon Crawford. They did what they could to kind of make it a clubhouse that after 2023 and things really went off the rails, they valued that culture. Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson, they did everything in that regard to try and get the clubhouse where it needed to be. I think it was probably a pretty good clubhouse last year. They won 83 games. It wasn't enough. And it signaled that they were continuing to push the big, heavy boulder up the steep, steep hill, and they were never going to be able to get it over to the other side without an organizational approach that had to change. And so, incoming Chaim Bloom, incoming Rob Cerfolio, incoming a number of talented individuals that are going to staff the infrastructure ranks of the Cardinals development system to try and turn the corner that way. It may take some time to do it, but what you're left with is kind of a hodgepodge in the middle. As the new era is beginning, the old one is ending, and the organization feels like it's in a bit of a state of flux, and nobody can be exactly sure what is going to come next for the Cardinals over the next couple of years. We know they probably have to spend more to get where they want to go, but also we've seen at times the previous regime spend money and not really be able to have that be the avenue that got them over the edge. So what is it going to be that really propels the Cardinals into the next iteration? Still a number of questions that need to be answered. And I don't know if it's all going to come over the month of September, over the month of October, or the month of November, December, as the Cardinals usher in the Heimblum era and try to turn over this roster. I hope, for the sake of Cardinals fans, it is a significant offseason in terms of simply the number of acquisitions, moves, transactions that are made. I think the Cardinals need a refresh. I know this season was supposed to be maybe a bit of a retool. I think Heimblum has to be the one to bring in the refresh. Truly, you're going to have to turn over and churn a lot of elements of this roster in order to get Cardinals fans on board again. It's going to remain to be seen how quickly they're able to maybe take some of the rot that has settled into the corners and the far reaches of the roster and the organization, and truly have a nice spring cleaning, clean out the clutter, and find a way to set the foundation for the future of the roster. But I don't know. The Sandy Alcantara thing is just another such example of, oh man, this era of Cardinals baseball, it just feels like that is the type of thing that would happen, right? You finally have a season where a guy like Sandy Alcantara, who I didn't even really talk about the trade aspect of it, that the Cardinals traded him for Marcell Ozuna, who was here for a couple of years, underwhelming as a player for the Cards before going elsewhere and kind of locking back in with the Braves as a home run hitter, the way that we just never really saw develop and materialize quite the same way with the Cardinals. It is what it is. Trades happen. I'm not going to harp on John Mozeliak for that one, but it's kind of something that I think sticks in the craw of Cardinals fans where you go, couldn't we at least be able to hit off of this guy now that he's no good anymore? And you weren't even able to get that last night if you're a Cardinal fan. So let me know how you felt about the Marlins series, how you feel about a season that it just feels too difficult and maybe not even worth it to get worked up over things anymore. You kind of know the way that it's going to finish. There's going to be some good, some bad, and a win total that ends up in the upper 70s or low 80s, and Cardinals probably finish right about in the middle of the league. It feels inevitable at this point, but I'm curious how you guys feel about it out there in Cardinals land. Let me know with your comments below. Make sure to subscribe and hit like on this video to continue getting your Cardinals coverage from right here at B-Schaeff Daily and the Brenden Schaeffer St. Louis Cardinals Writer YouTube page. Check out my work for STL Sports Central as well. I appreciate you guys sincerely for tuning in to this video, and I hope to catch you next time on B-Schaeff Daily. Peace.